of Kiss.
Welcome to Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson. This week, another lesser-known story. Not as terrible as last week. Not as sad as last week. At least, I guess it could be sad in a weird sort of way, but not nearly as bad as last week's Peter Nygard episode. This story, I teased it last week. Kind of the climax of this story made headlines in the 24-hour news cycle when it happened. But like everything around this story just gets even weirder. So like a lot of you probably don't even remember it. It was during Obama's presidency, and like it was a ricin attack, and ricin being like one of those apparently super dangerous substances like anthrax that you can just make and mail to people and kill them, essentially, is how the long and short of it. But this is kind of the full story of what happened. Just real strange, real silly, and let's get into it.
Story time. Story time. Story time? Story time.
We are telling the story of Kevin Curtis, who grew up in Tupelo, Mississippi, and was kind of like sort of a child prodigy on the Elvis impersonation circuit. And like, look, that's all of the Elvis fandom and everything is like a weird niche group that, like, obviously, like here in North Carolina, like we don't care anything about that, but like out in Tupelo, where Elvis was born and raised, Memphis, probably some in Las Vegas, like that stuff is huge. And apparently there's like this weird circuit of people who do Elvis impersonation. Kind of how it was like the episode of South Park where there was like the freak show group, and they all went on the circuit of talk shows and everything, like Maury and Steve Wilkos and all of that. And like, it's kind of the same thing. It's like just a group of people who do Elvis impersonations, and they are just like on this rotating circuit of appearances and concerts and all of that. And Kevin Curtis, he was one of these people. And like, as a kid, like a little kid Elvis impersonator, and there's all kinds, and like his mother, Lois, even drove him to Memphis as a kid to have an Elvis suit custom made for him by Elvis's official suit and belt maker. So he's like deep into this as a kid. As an older teenager, when he's like, going through puberty, acne, weird facial hair, and like being an Elvis impersonator wasn't like as cute or lucrative, he got into a motorcycle accident with his girlfriend that, according to reports, quote, ripped her face off. I'm sure it's an exaggeration, but like, I like to imagine that he gets into this motorcycle accident and then his girlfriend just literally no longer has a face. Like no eyes, just a patch of skin where her eye holes should be, no nose, just two air slits, and then maybe like a little tiny like butthole mouth. And that's it. And everything else is just smooth, like real smooth and shiny because you had to have a skin graft to replace the face skin. That's what I like to imagine. I don't think that's what actually happened, but for me to enjoy this story and visualize it, that's what I'm imagining. Here's the thing though. I feel like most people that we cover on this show, they would just leave this poor girl to a life of misery. But no, as a consolation, Kevin Curtis agreed to then marry this girl after ruining her life and getting her face ripped off. So good for him, I guess. But by his late 20s, Curtis had divorced his faceless wife and then had spent a few years living in his car and eating from garbage cans in Chicago. He eventually turned things around, moved back to Tupelo, Mississippi, got married to a woman named Laura, had kids, and then ran his own janitorial company. He had also returned to his Elvis impersonations and was a frequent guest on like a local cable access show. In 1998, Curtis took a contract job buffing floors at the North Mississippi Medical Center while continuing to moonlight as an Elvis impersonator with his brother Jack, performing as the duo Double Trouble, in which young Elvis and Vegas Elvis performed at the same time. I don't know which one's which because I don't think it ever really said, but like young Elvis probably being the hot one, and then Vegas Elvis being like the swollen, bloated alcoholic one. And they're performing together as like this weird, like space-time continuum warped reality where two different versions of Elvis are on the same stage. I don't know. But for people who love that kind of stuff, like that's the greatest thing ever. On December 17th, 1999, Curtis was cleaning out a clogged blood pump in the hospital's morgue. And look, that sounds terrible, but like also what else is this supposed to do? Of course, in a morgue, they've got to drain the blood out of people and then they're just going to send it down the drain. And there's a pump and sometimes it gets clogged with, I'm guessing, chunky blood. After 3 hours of cleaning this up, he went over to a random refrigerator in search of something to drink and was shocked to find a human arm wrapped in plastic with a barcode attached to it. Then he saw a leg in the same fridge, and then he realized the entire bottom drawer of this fridge was full of more arms, legs, and feet, along with eyes and someone's brain. In the upper compartment of the fridge, he saw the severed head of a man that he had definitely seen alive in the emergency room a couple of nights before. And that's horrifying, right? And granted, like common sense would say, hey, if you're in a morgue, I'm guessing that any kind of refrigerator or cooler in there is not going to be full of snacks, all right? There's going to be a designated break room for that sort of thing. But Kevin Curtis, like, bless him, I don't think he's the smartest guy in the room anywhere. And so he's just opening up a random fridge looking for a nice crispy Coke. And he just sees all of these severed body parts in this fridge. And definitely was probably, a guy that he had seen a couple of days ago. So now he's kind of freaking out. The next day, he was summoned to the hospital CEO's office, who handed him a stack of documents to sign, saying that he was in an area of the hospital that he was not authorized to be in, and that he agreed to be suspended without pay while the incident was being investigated. Curtis thought that this was all really weird, and he refused, adamantly asserting that he had been authorized to be in the morgue and insinuating that maybe those body parts probably shouldn't have been in that fridge. Yeah, but also, while you may have been authorized to be in the morgue, were you authorized to go snooping around and opening up all the stuff? Probably not. In response to Curtis refusing, 6 security guards then grabbed him, tackled him, placed him in handcuffs, and then forcefully walked him outside, where they informed him that he was now banned from the hospital for life. I don't know how you can possibly do that, right? Because, like, let's say he just immediately walks out into the street and gets hit by a car. Are they not going to just bring him back to that hospital and treat him? I mean, it's probably like you can't work at this hospital, but like you could probably still go as a patient. I'm guessing. Maybe. I don't know. So believing now that he kind of stumbled onto like some kind of weird black market organ trade going on inside this hospital, Curtis began trying to fight against the hospital and this alleged black market scheme they were running. He became so obsessed with this that he was fired from other contracts and began using his platform as an Elvis impersonator to raise awareness about black market organ trading. And that's got to be weird. Just like, hey, everybody, right before I start singing Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, I want to share something very near and dear to my heart. This is a terrible Elvis impersonation. I'm sorry I'm not Kevin Curtis and I'm not a professional Elvis impersonator, you guys. But imagine some weird dork on stage in full Elvis costume, also railing about black market organ harvesting. That's weird. It's real strange. So along the way, Curtis racked up several arrests on charges of cyber stalking and public intoxication that he claimed were all drummed up by corrupt cops who were working with the hospital to take him down. It didn't help ease his suspicions when his car exploded or when his house burned down, killing his pet dog, rabbit, and cat. And that is very strange. Did he do it himself to make it seem like? I don't know. But this is how the story goes. Although the official fire inspection report listed a defective battery as a result of the car explosion, Curtis continued his seemingly nonsensical rants about the hospital black market to anyone who would listen. Eventually, his wife Laura couldn't take listening to it anymore, and she moved out with the kids. And so, without a family and without really any job, Curtis took his vast amounts of new free time to fully commit to unearthing this conspiracy. He built out MySpace pages. He even wrote a novel and a screenplay titled Missing Pieces, in which intrepid janitor Keith Carter stumbled upon a suspicious morgue fridge. Ooh. I don't know, man. At what point do you not just go to a lawyer? Why do you have to have multiple MySpace pages? And why do you have to write a screenplay? Just go to a lawyer and say, hey, this is what happened to me. An employment lawyer can look at a wrongful termination and be like, oh, yeah, we got a big case here. And this all would have ended so much quicker and so less wacky than it ended up being. But no, these are Mississippi people. All right. So in 2006, Curtis learned about a guy named Everett Dusky, who was a Taekwondo instructor and Mensa member who ran an independent newspaper that claimed to, quote, print any story in Northeast Mississippi, no matter how big or small or controversial. And if you remember, if you don't know what Mensa is, it's basically like a club of smart people that you like pay to get into. You like take a test, and if you pass and get a certain score, like they'll let you into Mensa, and it's just like this, you know, dick measuring contest for smart people. So Curtis learns about this guy who runs this paper who will publish any story. And Curtis has got to be like, can't believe his luck. It's like, finally, someone, maybe the first person ever, is going to finally listen to me. So Dusky also, by the way, worked at an insurance agency with Curtis's ex-wife, Laura, and ignored all of Curtis's contacts attempts until Curtis actually showed up at a company luncheon one day and confronted him. Dusky explained that he actually couldn't run his story because he was preparing to run for the state legislature, and printing anything negative about the Tupelo hospital could very much ruin his campaign. So the campaign happens. Dusky loses in a landslide to incumbent Democrat Steve Holland. And so he returns his attention to Curtis, who was still really mad that Dusky had lied to him about printing any story in his paper. So now he's like honed in on that issue. You said no matter how controversial you would publish any story, and you didn't publish it. You're just part of you're working for the hospitals trying to cover it up. You're part of the... Anyway, by now, Curtis had created fake Facebook accounts using photos of Dusky's wife and stepchildren in an attempt to smear him. And then rather than deny any wrongdoing about how very bad that was, Curtis claimed that Dusky was actually stalking him and surveilling his MySpace page up to 75 times a day. You can't, no. In 2010, Curtis posted a fake Mensa certificate with his name on it, which is like, oh yeah, look who's in Mensa now. And that baited Dusky into sending him a threatening email demanding that he take the fraudulent certificate down in one day or else, adding, quote, you cannot be both genius and retarded at the same time. And look, I don't like anyone in this story, all right? Dusky's just as much of a creep, all right? But, oh man, that's such a great line. You cannot be both genius and retarded at the same time. And I kind of agree with him. Because look, even if Kevin Curtis at this point is completely right about everything, he has done everything wrong. to make it look like he is a credible, mentally stable person to bring this kind of thing forward. It's the same issue that I have with people who claim to have alien encounters. No one who ever says they saw aliens presents as someone who seems very sane and mentally put together in life. They always seem like there's just something off, some more than others. And Kevin Curtis is kind of the same way. All right? Just, oh man, it's just so frustratingly annoying about this. Well, when the 24-hour period to remove the fake Mensa certificate came and went, Dusky then sent another email to Curtis suggesting that they settle things like men inside his Taekwondo dojo. And I can't decide at this point if Dusky is more like Dwight Schrute or the dojo instructor from Napoleon Dynamite. Bow to your sensei. Like, it's just... like, that's the kind of energy that Dusky is giving off to me. He's like, oh, okay, you want to settle this? Why don't you come down to my dojo? We'll settle this like men. So he like sets a deadline. Come here Tuesday at 1 p.m. And like that deadline came and went, and both men then accused each other of chickening out and not showing up. And I feel like that's a real easy one to fact check. All right. I'm going to side with Dusky on this. It's his dojo. He's probably there working a regular shift anyway. So it's easy to see if Curtis didn't show up. And then Curtis has the balls to be like, oh no, I was there. He didn't show up. So whatever. When these two weren't bickering with each other, Dusky was busy trying to advance his own music career with Dusty and the Robo-Drum. However, he was so bad at music that everyone at the open mic nights that he frequented would just get up and walk out as soon as he went up on stage. Like, that's like, it's one of those things where it's like, he's got such a reputation that everyone sees like, oh God, not this guy again. And like his, I don't know if it's like one album or what, but like it's all on YouTube and you can find it today. His most popular / most hated song, titled Too Young, it was about a man who was in love with an underage girl. Like, just so you have like the full picture of how weird and creepy this dude was. Obviously he runs for state's, representative, gets destroyed, but he's also a Taekwondo dojo owner, also runs this weird kind of paper that prints everything. And I'm getting the sense that it probably doesn't have a huge following. And then also has his little music project. And of course I'm going to play his rapey song for you. And like, you listen, like, and here's the thing. It's not as bad as like some of the other weirdos. Like, it's not as bad as Yahweh 13 or a couple of the serial killers who made their own music, but it's not great.
You were too young, I should have known better. It's just that baby face of yours. One look in your eyes and I'm on fire. And baby, now this world is yours. You were too young. You were too young. I miss you, baby, don't you worry. You ain't missing nothing here. This world's too big and you have choices. At your age, none of them are clear. You were too young. You were too young.
See what I mean? What a creep, right? And so, like, that's the kind of vibe that this dude is. Like I said, no one in this story is very likable. Unsurprisingly, Dusky was charged with indecent exposure in 2012 after he was caught standing naked in his window and pointing a green laser at school-age girls as they walked past. Hey, girls, why don't you come into this dojo? Ugh, gross. Shortly after appealing his 90-day prison sentence, he was charged with improperly touching 3 girls under the age of 16 at his dojo. Oh, God. Anyway. In April of 2013, Judge Sadie Holland showed up for a shift at the Tupelo Justice Court. An administrative assistant informed her that she had received a suspicious letter, but thinking nothing of it, Holland opened the letter and saw some coarse powder in the bottom. It didn't have an odor, and Holland thought it must have been a gift from someone that she had performed a wedding for recently, like it was sand from the beach they had traveled to on their honeymoon or something, whatever. Not totally out of the norm. But when she opened the letter and read the message that had been written for her, she realized that something might be off. The note said, quote, "No one wanted to listen to me before. There are still, quote, missing pieces, end quote. Maybe I have your attention now. Even if that means someone must die, this must stop. To see a wrong and not expose it is to become a silent partner to its continuous. I am KC and I approve this message." Unbeknownst to Judge Holland, identical letters had also been sent to Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker and President Obama. Even more, the powder in these letters was ricin, a dangerous toxin that is actually shockingly easy to manufacture. Basically, you just take some castor beans, grind up the hulls, add some lye and nail polish remover, just, for anyone out there who's curious. Less than a pinprick sized amount is enough to kill a person. And it's great. Castor beans, I think, are the most difficult thing to get, but you can get them somewhere. I don't know where, to be honest. If the government's listening right now, I have no idea how to get castor beans. I also don't know how much lye or nail polish remover to add. All I'm saying is that you can figure it out pretty easily. Federal authorities didn't have to search very long on who the author of this letter was, since Casey and the missing pieces notes in the letters easily led them to Kevin Curtis. He was snatched out of his car in Tupelo while his Chihuahua, Moo Cow, his dog is named Moo Cow, and it's a Chihuahua. Anyway, dog was in the passenger seat with him. He was transported to Oxford, Mississippi, where he spent 3 hours chained to a chair in an interrogation room before anyone actually came in to talk to him. By nightfall, agents began their interrogation, initially lying and saying that a young girl was about to die because of what he had done. And Curtis, he is genuinely baffled by all of this. Eventually, when the interrogation didn't seem to get anywhere, a Homeland Security agent asked Kevin Curtis if he was familiar with ricin. Curtis replied, "I don't like rice. I don't really eat rice. If y'all look at my house, you won't find any rice." And then 7 hours and tons more stupid questions later, agents actually started to believe that Kevin Curtis actually had not sent the ricin letters at all. Oh, wow. We're going way back and forth on this. We hate everybody in this story. We think Kevin Curtis is just an unhinged weirdo who said, he's the bad guy, clearly. But wait, is he? Well, when Homeland Security asked Kevin Curtis if he had any enemies, he immediately named Dusky. Despite that, because Curtis wasn't exactly the most popular guy in Tupelo thanks to his hospital conspiracy peddling, local media outlets, once they realized and once they found out that he had been arrested for these ricin attacks, they immediately assumed that he was guilty. Future Tupelo Mayor Jason Shelton went on record to describe Curtis as being an insane person, which isn't totally wrong. His former attorney also released a statement saying that Curtis was better off in the federal government's custody. Even his own brother, i.e., either Young or Vegas Elvis, also talked about Curtis's long history of mental illness. 4 days after he was released from custody, federal authorities then arrested Dusky after getting witness testimony who overheard him bragging about how good he was at making ricin. A surveillance team also watched Dusky carry a coffee grinder box, a box of latex gloves, a dust mask, and drain cullings to a dumpster that subsequently tested super positive for ricin. Even more, investigators recovered a document from Dusky's laptop titled Standard Operating Procedure for Ricin, as well as receipts from eBay and PayPal for 100 red castor bean seeds. All right, well, there you go. You can just get castor bean seeds on eBay. When presented with all of the evidence against him, Dusky claimed that it was all absurd and that nothing about that evidence was technically illegal. And he's not wrong. Like, no, hang on. It's not illegal to own castor beans. It's not illegal to own a coffee grinder. It's not illegal to own latex gloves. That's all you know. None of those things are illegal, bro. Bow to your sensei. Well, eventually, it did also help that public opinion of Dusky being a genius, albeit an extremely weird and off-putting genius, helped his case, since the ricin in the letters wasn't actually lethal and the entire operation had been so poorly executed, which was something that a Mensa member would surely be too smart to screw up. But soon, after all of this evidence came forward and everyone got the full story instead of jumping to conclusions like they did on all of the news outlets, the national media changed its opinion on Kevin Curtis and began hailing him as a falsely accused hero. What actually made him heroic is not clear at all, but whatever. He was then flown to New York for a media spree and appeared on shows with Piers Morgan, Jon Stewart, and others. Dusky eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. There you go. The story of Kevin Curtis in the books. I'm willing to bet that at no point up until the very end of that story did you think that Kevin Curtis was the good guy in all of this. Oh, and here's the thing. I don't think that like hospital issue ever got resolved. I think everyone just kind of forgot about it after the ricin thing happened. But just neither him or Dusky in this story is super likable. But let's recap anyway and see what we learned today.
What did we learn?
Number one, Kevin Curtis, big on the Elvis impersonation circuit. That's just a weird kind of subgroup that exists out there, mostly in Tupelo and Memphis and Las Vegas. I would also imagine there's probably like some weird outlier group like in the Philippines or something, like some random place, you know. Anyway, number two, he wholly, strongly believed that the Tupelo hospital was in some weird kind of black market organ harvesting scheme. Maybe they were, I don't know. But then number three, he tried to get, what's his face? Everett Dusky to help him. And then Dusky kind of didn't. And then Curtis held it against him. And then for some reason, because Kevin Curtis was such an annoying little twat about everything, Dusky tried to frame him for a ricin attack against Mississippi politicians and President Obama. And then, of course, you know, the news, as they still do, jumped to immediate conclusions without having all of the evidence. And then one day Kevin Curtis is the enemy. Another day he's a hero, even though he didn't do anything heroic. Oh God, this dumbest story all the way around.
What did we learn?
Next week on Our Weird World, we're going to go back to part 2 of an episode that we did fairly recently. We're going to cover some more curses. We're going to cover the curse of Griffith Park, the Black Hope curse, the Crying Boy, and the curse of Tippecanoe. And here's the thing, all right? I know every time we have a paranormal episode, I say that I'm going to poo-poo all over it. I'm going to state right now, unequivocally, I believe in one of these curses that we're going to talk about next week. The evidence is too clear for it to be like, if it's not real, it is the most insane coincidence ever, or someone's lying. Like, and that's totally possible, but like, man, there's a lot to suggest that one of the curses that we're going to talk about next week is actually true. And I'm going to say I believe in it because it is still taking place today. So, we have to see which one I'm talking about next week. So come on back for that. Thank you so much for continuing to listen. Keep telling all your friends and keep believing.
This is a podcast